For years, Gene Hackman was one of Hollywood's most respected yet elusive figures, a man who dominated the screen with raw intensity but remained an enigma off-camera. His death at the age of 95 marked the end of a career built on ruthless perfectionism. Behind the accolades and towering performances, however, was a man tormented by his own demons. Now, in a shocking revelation, his longtime friend and fellow actor Robert Duvall has finally broken his silence on Hackman's troubled life and mysterious death. The truth Duvall reveals is not what fans were expecting. His words paint a picture of a man who, despite his immense talent, was consumed by rage, solitude, and an inner war he never won. A tormented soul. Robert Duvall and Gene Hackman's friendship spanned decades, but it was never built on warm exchanges or nostalgic reunions. Their connection was forged in struggle, two actors desperate to make it, surviving off scraps while perfecting their craft. From the moment they met at the Pasadena Playhouse in the 1950s, Duvall recognized something different in Hackman. There was a fire in him, an unrelenting force that made him both captivating and volatile. Even as a young actor, Hackman carried an unspoken burden, a simmering intensity that never allowed him to settle. When Duvall finally spoke about his late friend, his words painted a tragic picture. He was a tormented guy, always into his own space, his own thing. It wasn't just a personality quirk. It was a reflection of something much deeper. Hackman wasn't just driven, he was consumed. Every role he took on was an extension of his own internal battle. His obsessive nature meant that he didn't just act. He became a character. Hackman demanded perfection, not just from himself, but from everyone around him. If a director hesitated, if a co-star didn't match his energy, or if the atmosphere on set didn't feel right, Hackman would explode. His temper was legendary, earning him the nickname Vesuvius because he could erupt at any moment. But this rage didn't stem from arrogance. It came from something far more complex, something that Duvall always sensed lurking behind his friend's piercing gaze. Haunted by the past, Hackman never forgot the people who doubted or underestimated him. He carried those memories like chains around his neck, using them as fuel, but also as burdens. His success never felt like enough. Even after winning Oscars and proving himself to the world, he remained haunted by the idea that he still had something to prove. This level of self-imposed pressure can break a person, and in many ways, it did. Duvall understood that Hackman's isolation wasn't just a personal choice, it was a necessity. Hackman didn't trust easily, he didn't forgive easily, and he never allowed himself to slow down, not even for the people who cared about him. That is why, in the end, when Hackman disappeared from Hollywood and locked himself away in New Mexico, Duvall wasn't shocked. It was simply the final act of a man who had spent his entire life running from something he could never escape. A childhood of hardship. Hackman's struggle started long before Hollywood. It began with the Marine Corps and his mother's devastation. Hackman was not just a man with a temper. He was a man forged in hardship. The world saw him as a towering figure of strength. But beneath that exterior was a young boy who learned far too early that people leave. His father abandoned the family when Hackman was only 13. This was not just a wound. It was a defining moment that shaped the rest of his life. At just 16, Hackman lied about his age and joined the U.S. Marine Corps. It was a desperate attempt to reclaim some form of control over his life, to outpace the sense of belonging that had been ripped away when his father walked out the door. However, in doing so, Hackman left another wound in his wake, one that never truly healed. When Hackman's mother learned of his enlistment, she was devastated. It wasn't just that he had left, it was how he had done it, how suddenly he had vanished from her life, just as she had lost her husband. The emotional impact was severe. Those close to the family later described it in stark terms. He killed her, Duvall said. Not literally, but emotionally. A life marked by isolation. When Robert Duvall finally broke his silence, his revelations painted a bleak portrait of a man living in isolation from a young age, something that never left him. Duvall revealed that it was rare for Gene to talk about his upbringing, but through snippets shared over the years, it was clear that Hackman's early experiences had a profound impact on him, shaping the man he became. Duvall saw something profound in Hackman, a man who wanted to fight against the world. Even decades later, Duvall recognized that Hackman wasn't just a difficult man. He carried the weight of a decision that set him on a path from which he could never quite escape. This unresolved turmoil haunted Hackman throughout his Hollywood career, into his personal relationships, and ultimately into his lonely final years. The shadow of loneliness. Duvall's revelation about Hackman wasn't just about his career or legendary temper. It was about the loneliness that followed him like a shadow for his entire life. From the moment Hackman entered Hollywood, there was something different about him. Unlike other actors who craved attention or the limelight, Hackman sought respect, but not friendship. He wanted control, but not connection. Hackman built walls around himself so high that even those closest to him struggled to break through. Dustin Hoffman, who had known Hackman since their early acting days, once recounted a chilling detail about their friendship. They would go out together, but Hackman would suddenly excuse himself, saying only, "I've got to go." Hoffman eventually learned what that meant. Hackman needed to fight. He would find a bar, pick a target, and start something. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about unleashing something, about burning off the restless, self-destructive energy that never seemed to leave him. Even in a room full of people, Hackman was alone, locked in a battle only he understood. Duvall saw this side of Hackman, too. As close as they had been in their early years, there was always a distance Hackman maintained. It wasn't just that he preferred to be alone, it was that he needed it. Hackman pushed people away before they had a chance to get close. Colleagues described him as intense and difficult, but Duvall knew it was something deeper than that. As Hackman's career soared, he became even more withdrawn. He worked tirelessly, giving every ounce of himself to his roles. But once filming wrapped, Hackman would retreat. A life of isolation. Unlike other stars who surrounded themselves with entourages and industry friends, Hackman kept to himself. He didn't attend Hollywood parties, didn't network, and didn't care about the industry beyond his work. Hackman saw Hollywood as a job, nothing more. When he had finally had enough, Hackman walked away without hesitation, disappearing into the quiet solitude of rural New Mexico. Duvall's words about his old friend carried a heavy truth. Gene Hackman always kept himself locked away, even from those who cared about him. The isolation wasn't just a choice, it was a way of life. In the end, it was also his fate, a lonely end. When Duvall broke his silence about Hackman, his revelations about the star's final days confirmed what many had long suspected. Hackman's life, filled with tension and distance, ended the same way he had lived it. For decades, he kept himself apart from Hollywood, from friendships, and even from the world itself. In the end, it seemed as if the world had all but forgotten him. In his later years, Hackman's reclusiveness became almost mythic. Unlike other retired actors who would occasionally surface for interviews or tributes, Hackman refused to engage. There were no red carpet appearances, no memoirs, no reflections on his storied career. Fans would occasionally spot him running errands, but those moments were fleeting and he never acknowledged them. Hackman had even moved to New Mexico, shunning the Hollywood lifestyle altogether. Then came the shocking news. Hackman had been found dead in his home, alongside his wife and one of their dogs. The most unsettling detail, it appeared they had been there for days, possibly even weeks, before anyone discovered them. A man who spent his life keeping the world at arm's length had, in death, become nearly invisible. The final act. When Duvall finally spoke about Hackman's passing, his words carried the weight of something inevitable. He died the way he lived, alone. Hackman had spent a lifetime shutting people out, pushing away connection, and retreating into himself. When the end came, there was no one left to knock on his door. No one left to check if he was still there. Gene Hackman's greatest performance wasn't in front of the camera. It was his vanishing act, his final revelation. Robert Duvall's final words about Gene Hackman are perhaps the most heartbreaking of all. His silence over the years wasn't just out of respect. It was because the truth was too painful to confront. It seems Gene Hackman struggled deeply with fame. From what Robert Duvall shared, Hackman wasn't driven by the desire for stardom or public adoration.